Alex Conant is a CBSN political contributor, and for a rare occasion, he joins us here in the Bureau. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, so let's talk about this new travel ban for the president. This time, he signed it without reporters present. He signed it in private. We got that one picture from the press secretary, but we didn't witness it with the cameras rolling. Certainly a lower key rollout. Now, officials have emphasized the rewrite was a collective effort and de-emphasized the focus on religion. But has the administration done enough to move the needle forward to get this passed through the courts?
Well, this is a much more carefully written executive order. I think it's tailor-made to survive court scrutiny. And I think the reason why the president today was very careful about how he rolled it out, as you said, only releasing a photo and then having some secretaries go out and be the face of this, was designed to build credibility behind the fundamental policy. I think the politics of this are clear. This was a promise he made during his campaign. The legality isn't something that's going to be worked out now. They feel like they've handled it. The issue has been, what is the policy argument for banning immigrants from these countries? I think by taking the president out of the picture and putting forward very credible cabinet secretaries and trying to de-escalate the politics, they're addressing the policy concerns.
As an analyst, does it seem to you that removing Iraq from this list, as opposed to the original one, is in a way admitting that the first rollout was not done properly, was not well thought out?
Yeah, and that's again why the president, I think, didn't want to go out and give a speech again. He already did it once. He didn't want to go out and eat crow on camera, in other words.
Right.
The first order was very flawed, legally flawed. The policy was flawed, but witnessed by all the changes that they made. And so, yes, absolutely, the changes that they made, I think they will never admit it, but it is absolutely an admission that the first one was badly handled.
All right, let's talk about the president's wiretapping claims from this weekend. What's the level of risk the president will be confronted with a Republican Congress saying he's wrong? I mean, you didn't see many members of Congress rushing out to defend it over the weekend. We had Jason Chaffetz on CBS This Morning earlier on Monday, not going on a limb to say that what the president is talking about is truthful. Is there a risk there?
Yeah, I mean, even his own staff, I think, was hesitant to go out and say he's absolutely right. Instead, they were saying, well, if he's true,
there was a lot of ifs. Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
But look, this was not part of some larger strategy that the White House staff had spent last week constructing. It was something that the president apparently decided to do all on his own Saturday morning. And look, it's only Monday. It's going to be a long week. But this is how the president works. He is very unpredictable. It worked for him during the campaign. We're going to find out if it works for him in the White House.
And Alex, it's interesting because clearly when the president tweeted this out, the press corps, reporters, everybody started to focus on this, started digging into it, thereby moving away from what the press was focused on last week, which was the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, recusing himself from any investigation into the alleged Russian hacking. Some people have posited that the president may actually be a little bit more crafty than some of these tweets suggest.
Well, there's a lot of reporting that the president was very upset about how the administration, how his staff handled the controversy surrounding Jeff Sessions on Thursday night when he recused himself. And there's speculation, well, maybe he did this to change the narrative. And that's possible, but I don't know why changing the narrative from one where they actually handled the Sessions issue well.
Right.
Once it came to light, he recused himself. Everyone was ready to move on and talk about good week for the president, good speech last Tuesday. Instead, we're now talking about Russia so much. It's on the front page of every newspaper in the country. They need to move beyond Russia. They need to start talking about their legislative agenda. That's why Tuesday night, when he spoke to Congress, it was a great success because he focused on his legislative agenda. The word Russia was not mentioned in that speech, and yet here we are a week later talking about Russia.
So is there a danger for the president in the sense that if it turns out that this information that he has came from a right-wing news source or from listening to right-wing radio and not from any kind of actual intelligence that would have been given to him, as you saw Director Comey of the FBI ask the Justice Department to sort of refute these claims? I mean, he's been Teflon Donald for a very long time. Maybe this doesn't stick, or maybe it does?
Well, look, credibility doesn't. You don't need to be credible until you need to be credible, right? And so there will be a moment sometime over the next couple of years where the American people look to the president to hear the truth. And we don't.
That's a good point.
It's unexpected, but there will be a moment where the president needs to deliver some hard truths to the American people. And episodes like this make that moment harder. And at the end of the day, a decade from now, we will judge his presidency on those big moments and by weakening his credibility over the small moments, it makes it harder to handle.
Yeah, and also, it's interesting because the president will make a claim such as there's illegal immigrants that voted in the last election, millions of them, and then he'll say something like this, and then they'll say we're going to have Congress investigate that, which is essentially punting it to the Congress, putting the onus on them.
Yep.
And then you don't hear a whole lot about it, but you're making a good point, which is that at some point the president is going to ask the American people to believe him and to believe the intelligence that he has. Will this make it more difficult?
We will see, but I have to believe that it will. When you already have millions of Americans who think he's a liar, don't think he tells the truth. You saw that during the campaign, and I don't think he's done anything since the campaign to enhance his credibility. If anything, episodes like this weekend weakens it. And that's a problem long term for this administration.
All right, let's talk about this former communications director for Senator Marco Rubio. I want to ask you about the skepticism he expressed on Meet the Press. Listen to this.
Do you have any insight? First of all, did the president talk to you about this on Friday? And do you have any insight on what precipitated all this?
We never obviously discussed that, number one, and I have no insight into what exactly he's referring to. And I'd imagine the president and the White House in the days to come will outline further what was behind that accusation. I've never heard that before, and I have no evidence, or no one's ever presented anything to me that indicates anything like that. But obviously in the days to come, you guys are going to ask them, and I imagine they're going to answer it.
So it's what we were talking about, right? Yeah. Sean Spicer said the White House isn't going to comment on this anymore. We're asking Congress to investigate this. Senator Marco Rubio saying, I don't know anything about this. Let's let them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I worked for Marco Rubio for 5 years, and I think that answer was him saying, why am I in the middle of the why is Trump introducing this now, and why is he dragging Congress into it? We've got really big issues as a country to work on, the domestic agenda like Obamacare and tax reform, and then the international agenda, including how do we deal with Russia,
right?
Which Marco's on the Foreign Relations and the Senate Intelligence Committees. He's on a committee that's already investigating the ties between the Trump administration and Russia. And so for the president to throw this in, I think it makes everyone's job harder in Congress, but also inside the administration, where you have White House spokespeople going out and having to defend something that does not seem to be fully baked, to say the least.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's one of the things that we've talked about many, many times. The president won this historic election because he was a straight talker. He said what was on his mind. People understand he's not a politician. They get that he's not going to couch his words the way an attorney might, which is one of the criticisms that both President Obama had and with Hillary Clinton. And this travel ban, while there are a lot of people that are opposed to it, there are a lot of his supporters who say, look, he campaigned on this. This is what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
He always said he was going to do this extreme vetting. Why is everybody surprised?
Well, I mean, maybe they shouldn't be. I mean, during the campaign, I think people said, let's take him seriously, but not literally. Turns out we probably should have taken him literally. I mean, they are very systematically going through the checklist of promises they made and doing everything they can to keep those promises now that he's in the White House. He's got 35% of the country, give or take, according to CBS's polling, that loves Donald Trump, and they will be with Donald Trump no matter what he does or says over the next 4 years. As Trump once bragged, he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and these people would likely still be with him. His problem is that 35% is not a governing coalition. If he wants to pass really big things through Congress, if he wants to get a supermajority in the Senate in the midterms, he needs to grow his support. And simply doubling down on rhetoric from the campaign and sticking very closely to what your base wants rather than looking for areas of compromise will not grow his support.
One thing that it's something that he campaigned on very heavily, as did almost all the Republicans who were running for the presidency, which is the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act. The Congress introduced just today some new policy issues, a revised draft. I want to get your sense of what you think of the draft of this replacement bill and what you think it does for people who have currently coverage by the Affordable Care Act and others who are unhappy with that.
Well, I've only seen the top line reports. I think everyone is now going through the details, and with healthcare, the devil is always in the details.
It's complicated, as the president said.
It's very complicated. Who knew? Who knew, right? It is complicated, and we don't know, for instance, how many people are going to be able to keep their coverage under this plan, and how many people might lose their coverage. So those are key questions that we'll have to work out in the coming days. I do think that the current system is failing. You see deductibles rising, you see people lose, you see insurance companies leaving the marketplace, and so there has to be some sort of reform. It's inevitable I give the House a lot of credit for stepping forward with a plan. It's a long way from introduction to the president's desk, including you're going to at some point need some Democrat support in the Senate. But this seems like a very good first step by Paul Ryan and his team.
A lot of people have said that the Affordable Care Act is broken, even some Democrats. But why do you have, and we have to wrap this up, but why do you have somebody, for example, like John Boehner saying not going to happen?
Well, I think because of the political realities. I mean, the political reality is that you need to pass something big like this, you're going to need 60 votes in the U.S. Senate. The Republicans have 52. And even of those 52 Republicans, you see a lot of them, like Rob Portman and others, saying that they're not going to support anything that cuts Medicaid,
right.
Which most of these plans look like there's going to be some cuts to Medicaid. So I think John Boehner, who is a very good legislative tactician and is very good at counting votes, counts the votes and says, look, they're not going to be able to fully repeal it. They are going to be able to change it on the margins as they have to, because even, as you said, Democrats recognize that the current system is not working as it was intended to.
Fascinating stuff. Alex Conant, always good to talk to you, and thanks for visiting us here.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
All right.